So, have you ever heard something that totally surprised you during an interview?
At first there's a lot of surprises as you get to know them because there's a lot of things people don't realize when somebody's psychotic, what they kind of do to themselves. And yeah, there are some really shocking things, but anymore it doesn't have an effect on me any more than having more empathy for people, because in their sickness that's not something that they would do normally, and they have to live with those kind of actions for the rest of their lives.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, babies in their diapers, welcome to the Tiberius Show with your host, Tiberius Boy.
That's me, Tiberius.
And welcome to the Tiberius Show today. And I'm your host, Tiberius Boy. And as always, looking at various jobs and how they affect the world around us. Today's guest is going to be very interesting. We're going to talk to, someone who goes and helps people at some of the toughest moments of their life. He works with doctors, families, and patients to build treatment plans and get people the support that they need. He's a care planner at a state psychiatric facility. Let me introduce our next guest, the one, the only, the amazing Justin Felde.
Hey, how's it going?
Alright, so thank you for being on the show. But you are listed as a care planner at a state psychiatric facility. For my listeners that have no idea what that is, what exactly does it mean?
Yeah, so care planner, I guess the official title would be behavioral health care planner. And just think of like somebody that helps you out in your life, your outside life. So I like to introduce myself as the outside guy. So if there's something going on outside, maybe there's some stuff that's missing, I can help out with that. And then I work with discharges. So if they have any appointments that they may need when they leave, I work that all out, plan it, do it all.
So, how'd you get started working in mental health care?
It's interesting because I started out, I live in a rural area and there's not much work. And there was a group home for children that wasn't too far from here. And I applied, I got the job, and I just fell in love with it, fell in love with helping people. And I just kind of always pursued that career. And then I went back to college, got my degree, working on my master's, and then just continued down that path. I just fell in love with it. It was just by chance, not anything I was interested in as a kid. Just kind of fell in my lap.
So, what is a psychiatric facility? Like, is it a hospital but more complicated?
Yeah, so it's like, yeah, think of it is a hospital, a medical as well, but mostly focus on the psychiatric illnesses, and these are like the most severe mental illnesses you can have. They cannot be placed anywhere in the community, and that's kind of like the last resort. And I even hate using this kind of way to describe it, but it's like the worst of the worst, like the most severe mental illness that anybody can have, fully floridly psychotic. So they're really having a hard time in their life. It's pretty bad. Yeah.
So, what's the difference between a therapist, a social worker, or a care planner?
Yeah, so yeah, that's a really good question. So if you think of a therapist, that's what you would see that most people think of, like talk therapy. And most of those people have a social work degree. So it'll be like a licensed clinical social worker, and they're doing therapy. So when you become a social worker at a master's level, you can do therapy. A social worker is somebody that would be work in a institution that would help anybody in any way that they can see. So that might be advocating for them. Hey, this person's ready for discharge, or this person needs this kind of care. And they would plan, they do treatment plans, they would sometimes even do talk therapy. And the social workers there kind of all around. And then the care planning is something kind of a little bit separate just for the psychiatric hospital, where they focus mostly on discharges and outside stuff.
So, do you ever have to work with doctors, nurses, or counselors about all the time?
Yeah, constantly. Every morning we have a morning meeting where we meet with the psychiatrists, the therapists, the prescribers, the nurses, the care planners. We all gather and we go through each patient every single day to kind of see how we can meet their needs and how best to get them stabilized and get them as quickly as possible back to their regular life. Where they, we want people to thrive. We want to get them in, stabilized, and we want to minimize disruption to their personal life. That's the goal.
So, when you interview patients to learn more about like their history, what kind of things are you looking for?
There's some really key things that I look for, and every care planner is kind of different. But for me, I always want to look at friends and family. I want to reach out to the moms and dads and the kids because they're usually a wealth of information that can give me a good picture of they're who they are, who that
Yeah.
person is, and then also past psychiatric appointments. So any other facility that they may have gone to where I can request records and kind of see how they treated them can give us a nice head start on trying to get them stabilized and back into their life. So those are the two key things that I look for. Other things also past history of trauma, if there's any medical stuff that we may need to address, all that stuff's important. But when like substance use, stuff like that, everything. We kind of just go through the whole rigmarole of their entire life if we can, because it'll give us a nice picture on how to treat this person most effectively.
So, have you ever heard something that totally surprised you during an interview?
At first there's a lot of surprises as you get to know them because there's a lot of things people don't realize when somebody's psychotic, what they kind of do to themselves. And yeah, there are some really shocking things, but anymore it doesn't have an effect on me any more than having more empathy for people, because in their sickness that's not something that they would do normally, and they have to live with those kind of actions for the rest of their life, where we've had patients where they've removed their own limbs and then later regretted it because they are in a moment of their they're psychotic, so they may think there's something living in their arm and then remove it. That was really shocking to me at first, but now it's like, man, it's hard to hear now.
So, when you're building a treatment plan, what goes into a treatment plan?
Yeah, so with treatment plans, you want to be very specific. They recommend the SMART goals, and it has to be individualized. So when we do the interview, we kind of see what can best serve this person. What goal could we create that this person would benefit from the most? And that would include like a nursing goal, that may be medical, where, hey, I will go to PT once a week or something like that. There will be a medication goal for the prescribers. There's a therapy goal for the therapist, and then there's a discharge goal through the care planners. So kind of just try and go all around and make sure that they're well equipped for when they get out, kind of what they need to do.
Well, do you ever have patients that don't want help at first? And how do you handle that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I would say most of our patients don't want help because when they're experiencing a psychiatric, I guess, crisis, they don't think that that's what's happening. A lot of times they do believe the government's after them, that we are somehow kidnapping them, and that we're colluding with the government in order to take their children away, or that we're implanting like Bluetooth speakers into their body and stuff like that. And they believe that, so they're really combative usually when they first get to the hospital. And it's sadly very easy for me as a care planner, because if they won't interview, I just have to wait until they get stabilized a little bit more to where they will communicate in a way that's productive, so I can just leave essentially. But there's been a few times where it's like, whoa, okay, you get in a situation that can be a little intense for sure.
Well, here's like a great time to take a quick commercial break. Let's hear it from our sponsors.
So you want to make an ad for your company, right?
Yeah, Tiberius, you want to help me?
Okay, so what's the name of the company?
PPWND.
PP what?
Professional Pressure Washing and Detailing.
So you like clean driveways?
Yeah, like that. We pressure wash commercial buildings and semi-truck and trailers.
So how would someone get a hold of you?
They can visit my site at ppwnd.com or call me at 407-900-7793.
So I just tell them to call you at 407-900-7793 or visit ppwnd.com?
Yeah, Tiberius, you got it.
Cut. That's a wrap. Just use that.
Oak Ridge Gun Range is a family-oriented shooting range that has been in business for over 30 years. They specialize in basic firearm training and offer numerous services such as consignments, gun trades, gunsmithing, and concealed weapon classes. I even got my training for gun safety at Oak Ridge Gun Range. Great customer service, and firearm safety is what they do best. So find out more at oakridgegunrange.com.
And we're back here talking with Justin Felde, care planner, mental health supporter, and top-tier organizer of human well-being. So, Justin, what's that one part of your job that most people have no idea about?
I think if there was something that I would like people to understand is that mental illness needs to be taken very seriously, and that people who may be experiencing some kind of psychotic break, that they don't know what they're doing, and some of the stuff that they may do to themselves, or it can be very scary, and they need help. Not that it's something that they want to do or anything like that. It's like any other medical condition. And that would be the message I'd like to get out to people for sure.
So, you work with patients who have serious mental illness. How do you stay calm when things get intense?
For me, I don't know why. I've always just been kind of like stoic in any way, and I know that I'm safe. And yes, it's frequently things can get intense, but I'm lucky because of how I look and my stature. Like, I'm just a kind of a bigger guy, and nobody takes that on. And usually by the time I show up, they get calm because they see me, and it's like, this person's not vulnerable. So for me, it's a little bit easier. But for me, it's always stay calm. I always try and be open and non-threatening. I don't, there's a lot of stuff like this. You don't want to look threatening, so there's always a lot of like trying to relax my face. I'm very conscious of my body, how I'm positioning, my tone, what I'm saying, and I always try to be flat and just matter of fact and honest. So that's how I handle those situations.
So, do you ever get scared, or is it more just like a super focused mode?
Yeah, I've been scared a few times. If there's been a couple times where it wasn't so much an intense interaction, but I could tell that they were in fight or flight mode, and as they were talking, I could see themselves getting more and more worked up, talking about, these fights that they were in, and he kept inching closer and closer to me, and I was getting nervous, but I couldn't really express that because I didn't want to alarm anybody. And yeah, there's been moments where I was kind of just bracing for a strike or someone lashing out. But yeah, it's part of the job, unfortunately.
So, what's the difference between mental illness and personality disorders?
That's a really good question. And for mental illness, think of like something being sick. Like, if you had maybe diabetes or something like that, it's your brain chemical imbalance, things aren't firing correctly, can be treated with medications and through therapy and different things. So medications will work for severe mental illness or any kind of mental illness. With personality, like a personality disorder, it's kind of who you are. So the work has to be done by you. You have to do the work. There's no amount of medication that's going to help with that. It's something that the individual has to work out on their own, either through therapy or however they want to do it. So it's just kind of part of their person, who they are, personality. Yeah.
So, how do you decide what a person needs before they leave the facility?
It's once you kind of get to know them, it's more about just knowing who they are, and like this person could use a little bit extra help. This person would go into a structured environment and would thrive. And we have to allow the patient to have their right to self-determination, which means that they get to decide their treatment. And sometimes their treatment is, I just want to get the hell out of here and go homeless. And there's been many times where we've had to discharge patients to a homeless shelter and they just live on the streets because that's what they chose to do. But and some people thrive in that environment. Whatever lifestyle they choose to live is up to them. And some people do very well on the streets. But the ones that really want to work a treatment and really want to get as much help as they can, we just work with them and they kind of decide that for them. And we just kind of put little bugs in their ear, like, maybe we should try group home or something like that.
So you have to organize a wraparound services for after like a patient leaves. What are those?
So there are some mandatory things. So even if a patient is like, I just want to go to a homeless shelter and that's it, we are required to make sure that they get set up with an appointment for their medication management. They get an appointment. Basically, the only requirement is the medication, really, is make sure they have a follow-up appointment with a provider out in the community. But when we talk about full wraparound services, there are different programs in the community like PACT, P-A-C-T, which is like Program Assertive. I forgot the acronym. But it's a really good program because they work in the community directly with patients. So they may pick them up, make sure they're going to appointments, make sure they have their medicine. They can call them if they're in a crisis and they'll go out into the community and help them. So we try to give them as much services as possible or as much services as they're willing to take. It's full wraparound, medical, psychiatric, community, housing, all of it. Try to get it all to them.
So do you ever work with patients' families? And are those meetings like hard to do?
Yes. So yeah, I work with families quite a bit on and off, depending on the patient. A lot of families are really involved and most families are very loving and caring and want to help in any way they can. There are other families that are a little bit more difficult who may want to take control over their treatment and they can't. That's just not, the patient is their own individual. So they get to choose their treatment and they become frustrated and angry. But most of my interactions with families is through the phone. And so it's easy, and I always have a soft presence to me. So I feel like I do pretty well with families, but it can go either way. It can go very well or it can go poorly.
So do you ever find yourself teaching families things that they didn't know about mental health?
For the most part, when patients come in with a severe mental illness, most families already know. They've been dealing with this for years and years and years. So I don't have to educate much on some of the mental illness stuff. Actually, I would say that I've never really had to educate. They know more than probably just about anybody because they've had family, they've had a son or a daughter that's in the institution, and they work really hard to understand and see how they can best serve their family. So not too much. Most of the education is just kind of more of the institutional workings and how we do things at the institution.
So what's one moment in your career that you really surprised you or taught you something else?
The power of medication. For the longest time, I was like, how I viewed mental health was, you just need exercise, you need sleep, a proper diet, you need to have a community, you need to have a social life and all those things, and it'll protect you from mental illness. And that's true to some degree. There's truth to that. But there are some illnesses that just cannot be treated with any amount of exercise or any amount of social supports. It has to be medicated, at least from what I've seen in my experience. And sometimes that medication takes maybe 3 days to work, and that person came in incredibly psychotic, thinking the government's after them, and in 3 days it would be like talking to my brother, in the community. So the power of the power of medication really surprised me, and that I had no idea.
So why would a kid listening today want to grow up and do your job?
I don't think any kid would want to do this job. It's not any. I mean, there's no you don't get accolades. It's a lot of the times people are angry at you because something didn't go right, and you're doing the best job that you can, and people are still going to be people. They're not going to take their meds. They're going to do stuff that's not okay, and they look back at us and say, why didn't you fix this? And it's
Yeah.
just something we can't fix, and I don't there's nothing really appealing. It doesn't pay that well as far as starting out. It's hard. You're sometimes getting assaulted. You're being called names on all kinds of names in the book. So I couldn't see a teenager going, man, I really want to do social work. So unfortunately, that's kind of a reality.
Well, on that note, let's do a quick break to pay some bills.
All right, let's do it.
The Tiberius Show would like to thank one of their dedicated sponsors, Custom Designs Orlando. These guys are on Mills Avenue and do all sorts of stuff, ranging from photo ID badges, engraved signs, custom braille ADA signs, vinyl lettering to trophies and awards. The cool part about Custom Designs is they can ship products all over the United States. You can reach them at 407-898-0373 and tell them that
Tiberius!
sent you.
Over 40 years, Lighthouse Central Florida has provided education, independent life skills, and job training to thousands of Central Floridians who live with blindness or any degree of vision loss. Whether it's picking out clothes in the morning or just moving around your community and serving Orange, Seminole, and Osceola counties, contact Lighthouse Central Florida at 407-898-2483 or visit them online at lighthousecfl.org.
And we're back here with Justin Felde, the man who takes chaos and helps turn it into hope. Okay? So Justin, how important is communication in your job? Like, do you write more or talk more?
Yeah, that is probably the most important piece as far as working in a team, is that communication, because we want to make sure we're all on the same page and we're working towards the same goal. I would say that it's about 50-50 as far as paperwork and in-person meetings and different things where we talk and write. I would say that it's about 50-50 because we meet, but it is really, really important. We meet every morning where we have like an informal meeting with the entire team. We meet for an hour and go through every single patient. Then we have like treatment team meetings, and then I go in my office and type up those reports, and then it's always back and forth. So it's about 50-50, but it is probably the number one most important piece in my job is that communication.
So what's one tool you use every day that most people wouldn't expect?
Oh, that most people wouldn't expect. Ooh, that's a tough one. I'm not, one tool I would say that I use is more about like my personality, and how I interact with patients. It's not, I wouldn't really necessarily say that's a tool, but it's stuff that I've learned through experience. And then even being in college, I learned a lot of ways to deal with, psychiatric patients that I employ all the time. And it's a conscious employment. So I'm really thinking about how I can interact in a way that's going to be the most productive.
So do you ever work with people who don't have stable homes or families?
All the time, sadly. It is heartbreaking, where how many people you realize are going homeless from that hospital. And it's sad because the community doesn't have the resources in order to support these people. And basically they go back out in the same environment that put them in there. And it's really sad. And in my experience, the family or the patients that have families seem to do the best. Those are the ones that we don't see as much, or they seem to thrive, or that maybe we'll only see them one time and they don't ever come back. Yeah. So it's a sad state of affairs here.
So how do socioeconomic issues like money, housing, or jobs really affect your planning?
It makes it really difficult because we can identify what this patient may need. And that would be like, if they just had a stable home, they would probably do well. They have no problem getting to their appointments. The problem is that there's no public transport to get to those appointments. They want to go, they want to do the best that they can. And so when we try and plan these things, we try to give them as many resources as we can, at least give them the information for those resources, because I can't, make them get on the bus. And that sometimes it's hard because they don't understand how the bus system works. And so it's really hard. And I would say that socioeconomic piece really plays a big impact on the success or whether we're going to see those patients again.
So, how do you work with people who are dealing with like substance use or chemical dependency?
Yeah, so for with those, it's like anything else. We may recommend that they go to treatment, and if they don't want to, they don't have to. But that would be something that would discuss in therapy, and let the therapist kind of decide on, or let them work it out with the therapist. Working with substance use or substance abuse, a lot of times we have patients that have been abusing methamphetamines, and they're psychotic because it's a meth-induced psychosis, and it's basically just kind of wait around for that to kind of wear off. So it just depends on the patient given their history, like we talked back before about that social piece. Is this person experienced meth-induced psychosis, or is this schizophrenia that they actually have? What medications should we be giving this person based on the history that we do know? So all of it kind of intertwines, and it all becomes important. So we don't treat substance use really that much different than anything else.
So, do you think teens should learn more about mental health in school?
Yeah, I really do. And it's not so one so they have a better understanding of like people who may be experiencing some kind of mental health crisis. We are told, take suicide seriously and reach out to people if you're feeling these feelings, or you're having these thoughts. But we never told anybody how to handle those things, and that is scary. If my friend came to me and is saying, "Hey, I'm having these thoughts and I really want to go through with it," what do you do? That is a huge weight to put on someone's back, man. And that is terrifying, because especially if it's like a family member or your best friend, and nobody knows what to do. So those things need to be taught in schools, like where to go, how to deal with it, whatever you may need to do. And then it also would be good to teach them those things in school so they can identify it in themselves when they need to go get help. Because right around your late teens, early 20s is when like these serious mental illness start kind of developing or showing those signs. And if they can identify that in themselves, then they can start reaching out for help. So I think it's really, really important that everybody gets that kind of information, not just kids in school, all the way up.
So, what was the biggest mistake that you ever have made, and how did it change you as a person?
Ooh, the biggest mistake I ever made, and how did it change me as a person? I mean, there, being kind of part of the system. I think, I had issues, or I had problems when I was in my late teens, and I was able to get the help. And I can truly say that it changed the entire trajectory of my life. And I saw the value or I saw that having just a little bit of empathy from one person can go a long ways, and feeling cared about really helped me in many, many different ways. And it may play a role in why I want to give back, and stuff like that. But I think being part of the system and working in the system changed me in a way that I'm thankful for.
Okay. Now, can you tell me that one story? Remember, this is a kid's show. That one story, that you're not supposed to tell me about. Come on, you can tell me. I won't tell anybody.
Well, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of stuff that goes on at the hospital, and sometimes it's not pretty. A lot of people may be like urinating or defecating in the, like a corner of the room, or they're taking cups and just, like urinating in that, and maybe drinking it in a moment where they're compromised. We had a lady one time actually manually like put her fingers into her sockets and slowly pulled it out and separated her optic nerve. So her eye is gone effectively. And then she started to do it to her other eye, but staff was able to intervene and stop that. She didn't respond to any pain. She was you just seen her on camera, just standing there, basically almost looking into the camera, and just started digging, and just, it was horrifying. It's this horrible video to watch. It is shocking, and she did not respond at all to anything. So that kind of stuff happens fairly often.
Often?
Yeah. So there's I wouldn't say the eyeball stuff, but like where people are self-harming and maybe eat, like one guy just kind of defecated in his hand and just shoved it in his mouth. That's pretty frequent. That stuff does happen a lot. So there's your stuff I probably shouldn't.
Wow.
I don't share much with younger people too much because it's a bit much. Yeah, it's heavy.
Okay. Well, is there anything else you think my listeners should know about you in what you do?
One thing is, if you are ever in a situation where you have to work with social workers, please have some grace, and understand there are bad people in every field. You're gonna have those in social work as well, but I believe that the majority of people that take on these positions do it because they have a heart that they do want to help. And please keep in mind that we want to help, and please try and work with us, because that changes everything. If we can all work together and come to a goal, we're not against anybody. We just are trying to advocate and do what's best for our patient. So just please work with us.
Yeah. Do you have a Facebook or a website for my listeners who want to follow you?
I do Instagram. It's just I'm just Justin is my tag there, I guess. But I'm not much of a social media guy, so Instagram's about as far as I go.
All right. Well, what is that one question that you think I forgot to ask you?
As far as that goes, maybe daily routine for patients is always good to know. It's like wake up, they have breakfast, and then we run groups, up until the afternoon, till about 3 p.m. They're served breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And they're able to go outside, and they can get different levels where they can walk around the institution. They have gym with a full basketball court, weightlifting. They can do just about anything. There's a canteen. Sometimes they put on concerts at the hospital where the patients can go and watch, like a country singer out there on stage. And we do like ice cream socials and different things. So I don't want people to think when they go into the institution that they're just like in a cell or they're just in a room. It's not like that at all. It starts out that way, but as they kind of move through the system and get into higher tiers, there's a lot more freedoms. And being at least in the state hospital, you can have a normal kind of daily routine if you want to go play basketball or whatever you want to do. So I always think that is always good for people to know.
So, like, there's like no shock therapy at all or anything, like in the movies?
Well, not at our hospital, but shock therapy is a viable treatment. It does work for depression. So there are places that still do that. It's not the, where you see them like getting this huge jolt, but they do try and induce seizures, because seizures do reset the brain, and it does help with depression. So we don't do it. I've never seen it, but there are places out there that still do shock therapy.
Huh. Okay. Well, thank you, Justin, for being my special guest. Can you stick around for Math Corners?
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah, I like math, so let's do it.
Aw, Dad, my computer's slow again and I can't play my games.
Call Your Computer Solutions today, and we will scan for viruses and clean that computer up remotely and make it fast again. Our phone number is 407-826-0810.
Thanks, Dad. My computer's fast again. Now I can do my homework. Thanks for calling Your Computer Solutions at 407-826-0810.
Master's favorite subject, it's Math Corners!
And now it's time for Math Corners. Thank you so much, Justin, for first off, just helping me with Math Corners in general. And this week, we're just more multi-step word problems. My dad is always good at finding new problems for me to solve. And today, we're going to talk about planning time for job interviews. Okay? So, Thomas runs a company and is doing an interview day to find some people to work for his company. The company has requested for a number of interviews. 5 on Zoom that will take 20 minutes each, 4 one-on-one in-person interviews, and those will be longer, like 45 minutes each, and 2 panel interviews that will take 60 minutes each. He wants to have a 10-minute buffer between interviews. Can they complete all of the interviews in one 8-hour day?
Oh, man. Oh, geez, I don't know. If I were to, so we got 2 hours for the panel, and then you got 5, 40-minute ones? So that's 200 minutes. No? Oh, man, I don't know. I'm gonna say I'm gonna have to say maybe. Can I do that? Maybe.
Yeah, I guess we'll allow it this time.
All right.
Well, this is a world problem because interviewing people does take time, and you have to ensure that you're not rushing people out the door. So first, you just sort out the time for the interviews. You have 5 Zoom ones at 20 minutes, so it's just 100 minutes. Then you have 4 in person, and that is 45 minutes. So you get 180 minutes. And finally, the 2 panels are a total of 120 minutes. Now you add all those together, you got 100 plus 180, which is 280, plus 120, and then you get 400 total minutes. Oh, but wait, there's more. Now you have to add the number of interviews. 5 plus 4 is 9, and add 2, and you get 11. That would be 11 minus 1 breaks. That way you have 10 10-minute breaks or another 100 minutes. So now we're at 500 minutes. To convert the hours, you divide that by 60 and get 8 hours and 20 minutes. So you cannot complete it in one full day unless you decide to stay late and get paid overtime.
All right,
So,
awesome.
Justin, do you have to plan out all of the timing of your interviews, and how much buffer do you allow yourself?
Yeah, so that is a big thing out there right now because there's a lot of push and pull on who's going to get these times with the patients and when, because we do treatment team meetings and they're 15 minutes long with the patient, and sometimes the patients like to talk, sometimes they don't. So a lot of times we may schedule like 6 15-minute treatment team meetings at 10, starting at 10 in the morning, 10, 15, 10:30, all the way through. And it almost never works out that way, ever. So, and then, we have different team members on the treatment team, and they may be doing something else, and then we have to go and find them, and it's a mess. And yeah, so yeah, we do that a lot, but not very well at all.
Well, my teachers always say that I'll use math every single day. How do you use math in your work as a psychiatric, person?
I think the extent of using math in my everyday would be with the time, trying to coordinate all that and making sure I have enough time to do my paperwork and stuff. And I keep a mental note a lot. So I don't really use math that much, but it is used a lot out in the institution as far as like trying to figure out medications and medication interactions and making sure they're getting the correct dose based on how their body metabolizes it, and doing it that way. There's a lot of math that gets involved in that way, but for the most part, my job's pretty free of that. But you do, with time and figuring out when and where you need to be.
Well, thank you so much, Justin, for your help with Math Corners. And now it's time for the Heart of a Lion. As you know, we talk about the qualities of living by the Heart of a Lion, which stands for leadership, integrity, obedience, and nobility. This week, we're going to talk about leadership. For me, I think leadership is the act of loving what is good, having self-control, and being disciplined. The qualities of leadership are providing guidance and direction, organization, and being a positive influence on others. So, I was at bowling practice for a tournament the other day. I noticed something really cool. one of the older kids on our team, Jake, wasn't just focusing on his own game. He was helping everyone else improve too. You know, when Sarah kept on missing her mark, he came over, showed her a little trick with her stance, and encouraged her to try again. And I saw him helping Mia, too. I mean, she was very frustrated because her spin just wasn't working the same. And he patiently, adjusted her grip and gave her tips on without making her feel bad. And he didn't have to do any of this. I mean, he just stepped up and made sure the whole team was just getting better. Watching him made me realize that being a leader isn't about being the best bowler. It's just about helping everyone else do their best, even when no one asks. And that's the type of leadership that sticks with you. So, Justin, do you have an example of leadership that you saw this week?
Yeah, I as far as leadership goes, my immediate supervisor, she's great. And how she does her position and how she has helped me out a lot at work. And I've always been able to rely on her as far as if there's an issue, or even when it may be something a little bit more personal, like I don't know what I'm doing here, and I'm really overwhelmed with my caseload. She's always acted as kind of as a guidance for me, and I would say that is probably her strongest asset, is always making sure we're very well supported. And I think that is one of the best qualities you can have in a leader.
Well, of all the virtues in Lion Strong, which is the one that you see the most?
The one that I see the most, or the one that I think is the most important? The one that I see the most would probably be that. What were they? There was integrity, nobility. Probably that nobility piece. Just kind of with her. Just kind of taking charge and having that hierarchy and really doing a good job in it.
Well, we should always try to be lion strong in everything we do, shouldn't we?
Absolutely.
And that's our show, folks. I want to thank the one, the only, the amazing Justin Felde for being on my show. It has been so much fun talking to you today. I think we learned a lot about all your work being a care planner and social work.
Yeah, thanks, man. I really appreciate you having me. This was an awesome show. I'd love to come on again if you ever want to have me on again. And I just had a really good time. Please like and subscribe. It was a good time. It's a good cause. I hope you guys learned a lot, and thank you. If you want to reach out to me, I pretty much only Instagram, but I'm just Justin is my tag, I guess. And then, you can find me on there.
Well, also you can find me on Facebook and Instagram at The Tiberius Show. And I would like to thank WWPR 1490AM, Can't 98, Soul Radio 24/7, Easy Way TV, and all the other stations that air my show. And please visit The Tiberius Show on YouTube and hit that subscribe button. Justin, are you subscribed yet?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Who would I be if I wasn't subscribed?
Good. Okay, well, this week, Kathleen James, 438, says my biggest mistake was not involving my parents when I was dealing with a very adult situation in my teens. Well, Kathleen, thank you so much for sharing, and I think that we'll all learn a lot from the mistakes of others. And be sure to leave me a comment on my videos, and I may even mention yours at the end of the show. And also, be sure to listen to us next week on the Tiberius Show with their host, Tiberius Boy. And that's a wrap.